Okay, what's going on, boys? No Guides here. Welcome back to another tactics video. In today's video, we're going to go over the 4-2-3-1. As we're approaching towards team of the season, people are going to more of a balanced but defensive style, the 4-2-3-1. And I'll explain to you how the pros use this as well, because what you're going to see in the balanced defense tactics is going to be very similar to what pro players use. And this is why people get confused, because they see, for example, why do pro players have everything like almost on 50-50, and they think, oh, there's some secret tactic that pros don't give out. But that's not really the case. I explain that as well as I go through the video. The first one I want to note is, if I'm going, let's say, to a try-hard mode and I want to have a defensive 4-2-3-1, the reason why I like the 4-2-3-1 is because you pack out the midfield, 5 midfielders, which you can't really get into the formation with 2 CDMs. And you have a bank of 4, so you can, if someone doubles up on you, you kind of got 2 players to kind of defend against that. You got that central cam that comes in, but what's key with this formation is that I like to put taller players on the wide cams, and the reason for this is when you're up against constant pressure, you need those distribution outlets so you can lob the ball from the goalkeeper to the right wing back, right winger, left winger. In this case, Rabiot and Ginola, and most left back and right backs are pretty short, so they're going to win the header, pass the ball to Pedro, and then Pedro's that person that can dribble. So I'll explain that as well. But basically, you want to move these players. I'll explain that actually how that works after. So let's go into the tactics itself. Now, as I said, the defensive style. Listen, don't use drop back. People don't realize this, but when you use drop back, to make this more simpler, your defense AI, they don't react. Okay, if you leave it on balance, it's better to have. It's better to have, for example, balance and have a low width and depth than it is to have drop back and then a higher width and depth. So keep this on balanced. If you don't, I don't know why people use constant pressure. I see people do this quite a lot. I don't understand why they do that. But when you're winning, you don't want to be applying pressure. You want to be a bit more passive. Let the opponent come to you. Don't use drop back. You'll make your team perform worse. And the reason for that is they nerf drop back. And the defensive shape, they just stand there. They don't AI press them. So when I mean by AI press, I don't mean they go forward and press the ball. They just go out of position to step up to win the ball. So use balance. And for that to emulate a kind of drop back style, I always go with 37 width. I think it's a good combination. 37 width and 37 depth. Do you know what? I was just playing around with it. For those of you who watched my video for some time, most of my defensive formation on the 40-3, I always go with 37. The 37, we're still seeing the German crosses. They still come in compact shape. Try to avoid it if you can. And the second thing is the driven pass into the middle. People are going to be using the driven passes to get the ball to your strikers. If you want, you can increase the depth if you wanted to, like 40 if you really, really want to. What I would say is, don't be too deep. This is where people go too far on the opposite end, because if you go too deep, people can then get the ball down a byline and try to do a cutback and then pass the ball in. So you want to be high enough to be in a defense structure, but not too far where, like, you don't want to be too high up, but you don't want to be exposed to Trivelas either. So you need to find that balance. I think around 40 depth is pretty good. Not too high, but at least you've got a good chance to counter as well. For a build-up play, slow build-up play. Now, this is the thing. You need to use L1 triggers. This button alone is what distinguishes a top tier elite player, and I would say an elite player that shouldn't really be there. The reason why I put long ball on most of my attacking formations, because the truth is the average casual player, even elite players, don't use the L1 button enough. Long ball basically just means get it behind, what an L1 button does normally. That in combination with forward runs or direct passing. But when you're trying to close out the lead, you want the opposite. So slow build-up play is good. Now, you don't want anything, for example, like long ball. You don't want to be attacking. Slow build-up play. What I'd recommend is when you get the ball to your wingers, like the Ginolas and the Rabiot, as I mentioned, you do a 1-2 backwards. If you don't do that 1-2 backwards, you're going to be stuck in your half. The best way to create space, just like in real life, is to run away. So if you can trigger a run or do an L1 trigger, that will give you that outlet to escape. I'll get onto that as well, more into detail when I go over that. Chance creation, don't use possession. Now, possession makes sense in the final third. So let's say, for example, so what I like to do when I'm tryharding, you don't probably see me do this that much, but I like to hold the ball outside of my opponent's box, let them fall back to defensive shape, and then pass the ball around, force them to press from the defensive shape, and then either score a goal and exploit them, or keep passing the ball around. That's how it is even on the pro scene. But what happens in reality is that players come close, and it allows your team to also come and press them as well. So I wouldn't suggest using possession. Just leave it unbalanced. Let the game decide what they want to do with the players. The game actually AI is quite smart in certain situations. If they see a gap, they will run into that space. If you do possession, they're always going to make a run towards you. Balance, at least it mixes it up. Now width, you can use hug to sidelines, but just to make matters simple, we're just going to put it on 70. Idea being, when you have the ball, you're as wide as possible. And the wider you are, the harder it is for your press. If you're more narrow and compact, it's easier for your opponents to press you. The wider you are, you can pass the ball around, etc., etc. And a 4-2-3-1 is perfect for that. Perfect for that. Players in the box, to be honest, put it on 1. The key with the winning is like going down the wing and then cutting the ball back and distributing the ball between the midfield. That is the way you'd want to use this formation to defend very well. And that way you keep your back four and you pack out the midfield and your CDMs are there to recover. Then we're going to go now into the main nitty gritty. Now, I've got the typical 4-2-3-1. I'm going to explain to you the changes and why. So basically, how this would work normally is Rabiot would be here. This is how I play this normally now. Pedro, very, very good players. I put him in the middle. And then I put Bamba and Griezmann like this, both 5-star. Maybe Bamba's got the lack of the weak foot. But anyway, so sometimes I'll start the game like this. If I find Rabiot too clunky, I'll go to Roberto Carlos because he's more agile on the ball, okay? Then what I'll do is, if I'm winning, I could either sub someone off, but the way that I do it is I move Ginola to the wing, okay? Then I put Bamba, because he's high on the left back. Now, I'm not saying you have to do this, but what you can do is just sub off Bamba and put a traditional left back here. The reason for this is that I have one CDM that's more rigid and the other one that can distribute the ball and maneuver. Because when you're pressing, if they're both clunky and you can't turn, you're in trouble. Imagine you're outside the box. Let's go, for example, at the players in the box here. Imagine you have two CDMs here, right? If you're passing the ball back and forth between them and they both can't move, you're in trouble. That is why I did Rabiot. I regret it. If I didn't have Vieira, different situation. Rabiot, a bit of a fraud, doesn't got defensive awareness, so he can't play CDM. He's medium, not the best of CDMs or centre mids either, unless he's in a 3. So I'm like kind of stuck with Rabiot. So I actually dump him as left back, or I put him in when I'm winning state as a Lamb and a Ram. So the idea is you're going to pass the ball to these two players and they're going to be there. So for the striker, we have him on false 9, come back in defense. Ideally someone that can dribble here, because when you're going forward, this player will drop in. They're not going to drop into centre mid. Don't think of this like they're going to be playing like Messi. And in my opinion, don't even attempt to do anything like this. Don't touch that. Just put it simply on false 9. Stay central. You want him to be in the middle of the pitch, and he's just gonna drop a bit deeper. Sometimes it'll go next to the cam. Sometimes if the cam goes forward, but you want someone that can dribble, again, holding the ball outside your opponent's box and holding up the play when you get the ball going forward. This is why I say you need to do those L1 triggers. So although slow build-up play is going to help you against the press, you got to force that run manually. Even with long ball, it doesn't really work as well as you want it to be. So always force it yourself, okay? The cam, I like an agile player here. Come back in defense and stay on the edge of the box with a cross, so he doesn't go in. You got one player in the box anyway, but you're just making sure, just in case you change that, don't go inside the box from a crossing situation. This is a crossing situation, don't forget. The key thing is, do not put free roam. Now logically it makes sense. People always ask me this. Look, logically it makes sense. You want them to interchange. Think about how it is with Arsenal now. Gabriel Jesus, Martinelli, Saka, how they all interchange. Martinelli goes striker, Jesus goes on a wing. Creates confusion. In FIFA, it doesn't do anything, honestly. When you put free roam on your cam, just by itself, because people think they think, okay, you know what, let the wide players stay wide and let the cam just become on free roam. Try it yourself. The cam ends up in these stupid positions. It ends up on the side. It's nonsense. And you miss out the middle, play in the middle. Let this player stay in position. Come back on defense is very important. You need someone agile here, because when you break, this is going to be the heart of your actual attack and your midfield and your defending. Because when you win the ball back from a wide position, you header it inwards with these players into the middle. So this player needs to dribble. Don't put someone rigid here. If someone's going to be rigid, you put them up front. That way they can win a header. So maybe I'll sub on Ronaldo for Griezmann, for example. But have someone agile here in the middle, good agility and balance, and Neymar. Lam and Aram, the exact same thing. Stay in the edge of the box for a cross. Now, what you can do, however, is you can put a drift wide on these guys. This will just help it. You can use hog lines, but just for this example, to keep it simple, drift wide. The idea behind this is when you get the ball, they're going to be wide. Don't forget, Lamb and Rams, they play as wingers in this game. So the idea is you get the ball with your Di Lorenzo and your Ram's going to be there. Now, what this also going to do is going to create more space in the midfield for someone like Pedro to pick up the ball. The wider the players are, your opponent's got to mark that. So what's going to happen is your opponent's left back and right back are going to be pinned. Their wingers are going to be there. And that way you only have to really deal with like a maybe you can argue it's a 2v3, right? But with your centre-backs and even with your goalkeeper, you can outnumber defence because the centre-backs are going to have to be man-marking Griezmann. So realistically, you only have to worry about these 4 players in the middle. Realistically, I would say it's going to be a 2v3 because you got Pedro in cam. I'll come back in defence, and that is why it's important to put these players and stay wide. As I said, if I'm under serious pressure, the reason why I want tall players here, and you see this a lot on the top. If you see also on the pro scene, some of these guys, they put like, you know, last minute, these tall players on. It's not random. They also do it, some people, some of the pro players, not everyone. But it's to get the ball to the wide player so they win the header because most fullbacks are quite short. So that's the reason why. So if I'm really getting pressed, I just smack it to a Lamb and Ram because that's what people lose the ball here. This is where they lose the ball. And the reason why is they don't want to lob the ball forward because they're worried they're going to lose the header against, for example, their winger who's naturally quite shorter. So this will help alleviate that. And 9 times out of 10, you're going to win the ball or you can just header it forward. Then we have both CDMs now. Both of them on stay back while attacking. Cover center, cut passing lanes, my favorite one. The only thing I would say over here is for the other one that's more agile, deep line playmaker, just helps them a bit more. I mean, I think it makes a slight difference. Not amazing. Don't expect this to be like prime Lam. They're going to go a bit more into space. They're not going to find themselves in amazing positions, but it just helps break that 2 together and then it kind of separates it. So it gives you a bit of space. So they're not always together, they're not always rigid when you're going forward. But that's just that. Left back, right back, stay back and overlap and back line there. Don't put conservative on your back line at all. But that is, yes, that's the 4-2-3-1 if you're on a again, like I said, we're going towards, I would say, team of the season now. If you want to make it more attacking, honestly, all you got to do is bam, forward runs without even changing anything, and you can literally just get rid of false 9 and then that's it, because the formation is so versatile. You're just changing a few players here and there and a few instructions and you can get the job done as well. So I like that quick maneuverability. You have to worry about changing too many sliders, stuff like that inside the game. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget, if you want to get better people, you can come join my FIFA School Series, patreon.com/Neil Guides. Link is down below in the description. Thanks for watching. Take it easy. And if you don't get better after 1 month, I'll refund your money. Take it easy and I'll catch you next time. Peace.